Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Welcome back to Big Mouth, and you can continue this conversation with me over on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. So am I a member, am I a part of the fandom menace community? That's a big question. Now, who are the fandom menace? Well, they're not a bunch of gangsters who live in the same house. They are a group of people, and they're not a group of friends or anything. It's just people who don't like what Disney have done with Star Wars. So then I ask myself, am I a member of this group? Do I like what Disney have done with Star Wars? And of course, that question has many, many parallels to it, of course. Did I like the Phantom Menace? The Phantom Menace, what am I talking about? Did I like The Force Awakens? And then you forgot the bloody film's name. It's so memorable, right? The Force Awakens, I thought, was a really, really overhyped film. I think it did something that Disney felt it needed to do. It needed to get away from the prequels. That's what they felt. They felt there was a lot of negativity to what George did with the prequels. But of course, we know that prequels are a very difficult thing to do. The story before the story that we loved is a difficult take. And you're telling the story of how Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader. And you're telling a story that is so different in the parallel of the original trilogy. The original trilogy are classics. And you're never going to be able... I remember being in the cinema, actually, for The Phantom Menace. And when we walked out, I heard someone say, there wasn't even a character like Han Solo in it. Where's your Han Solo, someone said. And that's the problem that those films had, because they didn't have, I suppose, memorable characters. You had a young Obi-Wan Kenobi, you had Anakin Skywalker, you had Padme, but they weren't larger-than-life characters. They were prequel characters. They were the characters you meet before the story that you love. So that's just a little insight for me, and I actually do like the prequels, and I understand what George was trying to do, and the hate he got was absolutely ridiculous. But when I ask myself, am I a member of the fandom menace, and did I like The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, Rogue One, Solo, A Star Wars Story, did I like all those films? And in terms of The Force Awakens, it's a typical kind of, it's a Marvel-y kind of film, actually, because it's not a memorable movie. I thought Daisy Ridley's Rey was okay. I kind of liked her. I thought her and Finn became friends far too quickly. Nothing really hit. I liked elements of it. I was interested in it. I was disappointed that we kind of had BB-8 as this new kind of version of R2-D2, but we didn't get much R2-D2. We didn't have much 3PO. That was disappointing. It's like they were so desperate to move on from what we loved, they didn't give it enough screen time. And I think the big mistake, like everyone said, to be able to use Han, Leia, and Luke, and not put them on screen together was ridiculous. What did someone say? It's like being able to have all the Beatles and not taking that opportunity. And I think that's the kind of thing that I thought about it. So although The Force Awakens isn't a terrible movie, and it's actually kind of an interesting standing point, because even though it's a rip-off of A New Hope, JJ did bring in elements and arcs, and he did get us thinking. It was the whole mystery box. The problem with the mystery box is it's never got anything in it when you open it by the end of your story. And that can be troublesome, especially with people who have invested so much thinking time to work out what you're actually doing. So, as I say, I think The Force Awakens, they got a pass for that. It was okay. It was nothing special. But one of the greatest cliffhangers in movie history, having Luke standing there as Rey approaches him with the lightsaber, was really, really iconic. And I actually thought that was brilliant. The problem is you only get 30 seconds of Luke Skywalker, right? This is a Skywalker movie. For me, right, it was all wrong from the beginning. I think Luke should have been front and centre of all three movies. They should never have killed him off in the Last Jedi, and we should have seen him. He should have been the biggest thing in that universe. He should have been training Padawans, and then some kind of threat happens and everything changes. He's teaching Padawans. Luke, Han and Leia are together, but something happens and everyone has to go off in different directions. I think they handled the whole thing wrong, but they were so obsessed with the next generation, they didn't pay enough respect for the characters that we loved. And then you integrate the new characters slowly. And I think that's the problem with that. Obviously, for me, the big problem with The Last Jedi is it's a very dull, uninteresting Star Wars film. If it was just a sci-fi film, it would have had a pass. As a Star Wars film, it's very boring. There's not really a villain in the film. They kill off Snoke, which was the whole thing, was to shock us. But there's twists. As I've said before, the twist in 7, when Kevin Spacey puts Gwyneth Paltrow's head in a box, and you don't find that till the end of the movie, that's a twist. That's the kind of twist and shock you want. But killing off an awesome villain, and I did like Snoke in The Force Awakens, and I thought he was an interesting character and well played, I felt that he had potential, and maybe he faked his death and it wasn't even him. It is the middle movie, but still, it's one of those twists that's not very good. Rey being told by Kylo Ren that actually you're nothing special, you don't come from anything, your parents were just a couple of losers, deal with it. That's not a great twist. That's not a great shock. That's kind of giving me a present and telling me it's probably a PlayStation 5 that's coming out later this year, and then it's just a pair of socks. I think the film was very dull, uninventive, but then you look at what they did. We were all very excited that J.J. Abrams was involved in this movie. And then he wasn't involved in the Last Jedi. He didn't even write the movie. He had nothing to do. So they gave it to Rian Johnson. And in terms of Rian Johnson, I don't hate on him very much because it wasn't really his fault. He was told, look, Ryan, here's a piece of clay. Do what you want from it. But it's still got the grooves from J.J. Abrams. Don't worry about it. He's gone now. And so you give it to the guy and you tell him he can do what he wants. And there lies the problem. So you've got a big problem. But this is the film that divided the fandom, divided critics. And even though it made over $1 billion, it's people overly focused on box office rather than quality of the content. The film just didn't work. And unsurprisingly, Solo flopped. Solo was an average shoulder shrug movie. It wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't a good movie. It was just there. Basically, when you look at Disney Star Wars, it really is a Marvel MCU shoulder shrug where you don't really remember the films. It's just another part, right? And I think with Rogue One, again, it's not really a Star Wars film for me. There's some awesome elements, seeing Darth Vader being really cool at the end there, but these are just inserts. These are just fan services. It didn't have a construct. It's just what they did, right? They go, right, we're going to do the whole story of how they get the plans to Princess Leia, right? Did you ask for that? Did you want to see that? Did I want to see that? No. And there lies the problem. Kennedy and the people running all those films, right, and especially Kennedy, didn't have an all-round plan. I think the Star Wars story thing, which was just one-off kind of standalone movies, was a genius idea. They just didn't know what to do. So Rogue One is just, basically, it's part of the Skywalker saga. If you're going to do a Star Wars story, don't make it as part of the Skywalker saga. Make it something different. Again, Solo really is part of the Skywalker saga. Do something different. Put us on a new Star Wars planet we've never heard of before. Do something. Tell an interesting story. There's thousands and thousands of pieces of fan fiction and Star Wars comics they could have adapted. Not interested one little bit. They say that fans demand too much and it's not up to fans what they want, it's up to what the creators want, and we should respect what they want. But we are your consumer. If you don't please us, you're not going to make the money. They have messed this franchise up. And it's just an underwhelming mess. And of course, you don't know, and I don't know, what the Rise of Skywalker is going to be like. I have high hopes because Chris Terrio and J.J. Abrams did this film together. I think that J.J. has great quality. I think the accusation that he doesn't finish what he starts are right. But this is a film he's been there for. He's moulded. I hope, and apparently there's been reshoots. Midnight's Edge has spoken about it. There's been a change in tack constantly. I don't know what's going to happen here. Apparently there's rumours of time travel in a Star Wars film, which sounds a bit dodgy, but without seeing it, I can't really pass comment on it. So again, I ask myself the question, am I part of the fandom menace? Well, the fandom menace have got a bit of a reputation, mostly for being Trump supporters and alt-right. Now, I'm not a Trump supporter, and I'm not alt-right, but let's just say they are Trump supporters, right? It doesn't mean you can't listen to them. It doesn't mean they're bad people. They just believe the opposite of maybe what some of us believe. But when you go on the Geeks and Gamers videos, when you watch Jeremy and listen to what he says, he makes a lot of valid points about Star Wars. Now, I don't agree with his politics, but the point is what he's saying about Star Wars, what Mauler's saying about Star Wars, you know, and lots of other people like world-class bullshitters, which I listen to them a lot, not just about Star Wars. That guy does a really good job as well. Now, their politics might be right-wing. They may be Trump supporters. They may not be Trump supporters. I don't know, and I don't care. But the point is, we can always... I mean, I have friends who don't agree with my political views, but we're still friends. That's the point. Just because they have a view that you can never comprehend doesn't mean what they're saying is wrong. Obviously, that Star Wars girl as well. She did one major, massive video on a YouTube channel, and then she became part of Geeks and Gamers, and she still does her own videos, and she's a great artist. It's interesting. And these people became very successful because they came in with bravery and said what they thought, and it became very, very successful for them. I'd say, am I part of this community? That's the question I'm asking myself on this video. Am I part of the fandom menace? I don't like Disney Star Wars, so I suppose I am. If being part of the fandom menace means I have to be a Trump supporter, then no, I'm not part of the fandom menace. If being part of the fandom menace is a political kind of element, then no. But if being part of the fandom menace means calling out these studios who virtue signal, who put down men in their 40s, who attack people because they don't agree with them, then I'm part of the fandom menace, yes. I think the job that Disney have done on Star Wars is very, very piss poor. We've seen what Hollywood are doing now, the representation thing, and they just don't know how to do the representation thing. The whole point, if you're going to represent a community, if you're going to represent someone with different culture, different colour on their skin, that's great, but do it for the right reasons. These people are just doing it to get some medals and say, aren't you great? Aren't you good people? We know people in Hollywood are not good people. They're ambitious people. They suck people dry, and then they toss them over their shoulders like an empty beer can. So, yes, I am definitely part of the fandom menace in terms of talking about what they're doing to film. Look what they're doing to the Joker movie right now. Imagine if you're Joaquin Phoenix and a reporter puts a microphone in your face and says, is your art, is your performance going to motivate someone to do a terrible act? How would you feel if someone asked you that question? I'd feel terrible. It would mess me up. They have no right to ask questions like that. Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix believed they were doing something special. And I saw the test screening months ago, and it is something special, and I can't wait to see the theatrical version, as I keep on boring people about on my videos. But the point is, these people are now crossing a line. It's not just the studios, it's the journalists, it's the critics, it's the bloggers. They all have agendas. They all have political agendas. The thing is with me, I don't have a political agenda. I'm not really passionate about one side or the other. If I was to spill what my politics really are, I'm someone, if you're on the floor and you give me your hand, I'm going to pull you up. I'd say I'm definitely a moderate left, and that's who I am. I think moderate politics are very important in this day and age, where extreme lefts and extreme rights have become very, very dangerous people and crazy people. And I actually think a unity between the moderate left and the moderate right in world politics could really change this world for the better. But I'm not, as I say, that's my opinion, that's my political opinion. I'm being honest with who I am. So if being a member of the fandom menace means I have to be a Trump supporter, as I say, no. But what they're saying about Star Wars and about Hollywood and about the culture war right now is really important. The truth is, I want to get back to talking about films, talking about content of films, not whether you're offended about something or something scared you or freaked you out or gave you nightmares. Did you watch a film? Did you watch a TV show and enjoy it? And that, my friends, should be the only thing any of us are concerned about.